If we look at the classification of compressor, compressor can be classified broadly into two categories. One is intermittent type, another is continuous flow type. So intermittent type compressor are nothing but reciprocating kind of compressors where we fill the known quantity of fluid in a cylinder. Then with the help of piston, we compress it. It is a positive displacement type of compression. Problem with this kind of compressor that we cannot we able to generate very high pressure ratio, and the operation will not be continuous. So mechanical vibration problems may occur if we are going for multi-staging of this kind of compressors. Further, intermittent flow compressors can be divided into two categories: reciprocating, rotary. Reciprocating consists of cylinder, piston cylinder kind of arrangement that we say mechanical piston. A rotary will have sliding vanes, liquid piston, helical lobe, and straight lobe. In your syllabus of aerospace propulsion 1, we are mainly focusing on continuous flow compressors, where certain quantity of fluid will be entering into the machine, will be compressed within the vicinity, and finally will be generating the static pressure rise at the delivery. So continuous flow compressors can be divided into two categories: dynamics and ejector. Dynamic compressors are further divided into three different categories as per the flow directions: radial flow, mixed flow, and axial flow. So centrifugal compressor is one of its kind of radial flow type, where air enters axially and comes out radially. Similarly, there is a second category which is a mixed flow, where radial and axial flow will happen. So it will be a mixed flow. Next category is axial flow, where the entry and exit of the flow will be in axial direction, or you can say the flow enters and leaves the compressor parallel to the shaft rotation. So as I said that intermediate flow compressors are positive displacement. They are classified as reciprocating and rotary type. These are positive displaced compressor where they will confine a given quantity of fluid in a small cavity, and finally it will be compressed with the help of piston kind of arrangement. Continuous flow compressors are dynamic compressors where they will accommodate a finite quantity of working fluid that flows steadily in an annular duct that comprises a hub and casing. So it will have a impeller which will increase the kinetic energy, and finally that high kinetic energy fluid enters into the static diffuser where static pressure rise will take place. So centrifugal compressor, it basically works on the principle of Bernoulli's equations, which state that total inertia of the fluid remains constant in the process. So total inertia will have three components. One is called kinetic inertia, pressure energy, and your head that we say as potential energy. So a potential energy, that is inlet and exit. If you look at the centrifugal compressor, inlet and exit will be constant. Their relative distances will be constant. So we can say potential energy is constant. So when potential energy is constant, so any decrease in kinetic energy will be reflected as an increase in pressure as per the Bernoulli's principle. So what are the advantages of centrifugal compressor? Basically, they are suitable for small volume flows. If you look at the overall length of the centrifugal compressor will be smaller than the equivalent axial flow compressor. They are better resistance to the foreign object damage. Their performance do not affect with the help of foreign deposits on the surface. They can operate over wider range of mass flow rate. A pressure ratio of 4:1 can be generated with a single stage of centrifugal compression. If we use high-end material like titanium alloys for manufacturing the impeller of the centrifugal compression, we can even generate a pressure rise per stage up to 6:1. So what is the working principle? As I said, it works on the Bernoulli's principle. In this, air enters through the eye of impeller radially. Then its kinetic energy is increased with the help of impeller blades. Finally, that a point will reach where the fluid will experience a centripetal acceleration. So half of the static pressure rise will take place in the impeller blade, then the rest of the static pressure rise will take place in the diffuser section. And centrifugal compressors are designed in such a way that 50% of pressure rise should take place in the impeller blade and 50% rise in static pressure should take place in the diffuser blade to avoid any kind of unnecessary loadings on the impeller blades. So if we look at the schematic diagram of centrifugal compressor, it will be look like this. This center portion is known as eye, through which flow enters into the compressor. Then this complete circumference of this eye, this portion start as an impeller. So this is the impeller root. Then at the root, blades are attached. In this schematic diagram, you are seeing these are the radial type of blades. All right. So here flow will enter at a velocity equal to the absolute velocity that we are not giving as a notation as capital C. And this portion at the exit of that we say at the tip of the impeller blade, this diffuser section starts, right? So it may have more than 2 exits in some of the compressor where flow will decelerate, right, in this zone in diffuser where static pressure rise will take place. So if we look at the cut section of the centrifugal compressor, it will be looking like this. This is the eye section. As we look at the side view of this diagram, if we go the side view of this diagram, this will be looking like this. This is the eye, and this is the impeller section which starts from here at the impeller hub. This is the hub, right, where this blade is attached. So this is the impeller opening, that's the entry, and this is the exit. So high velocity air enters through the eye of impeller here. Then further increase in kinetic energy takes place while it's moving from impeller root to tip. Then high kinetic energy of fluid enters into the diffuser section, which is here. This section is diffuser section. It is also some sort of ring where the kinetic energy is getting diffused and static pressure rise will take place, and this portion is known as volute casing through which that working fluid will come out. So as I said that earlier discussion, I said there are 3 kind of blades that can be used: radial type, forward curve blade, and backward curve blade. Problem with curved blade is that the blade will be subjected to very high loadings, so unnecessary bending stresses will be more, but they are efficient compared to the radial flow. But in order to generate high pressure at low load, we usually prefer the radial blades. So in most of the centrifugal compressors, we are using the radial impeller blades. So as already I said, what is the working principle? Air is sucked into the impeller eye and will around high speed with the help of impeller disc. Static pressure rise of air increases from eye to tip because of the centrifugal effects. Then remaining static pressure rise will take place into the diffuser. So this is basically the working principle. So if we look at the variation of properties, that will be something like this. So this is the eye of the compressor. These are the impeller blades. These are different blades rows. So from eye and to the diffuser outlet. So from here to here is the tip of the impeller. Then from this point up to here is the diffuser section or diffuser ring. So we look at the pressure rise. So pressure rise is taking place from eye to tip of the impeller. Then rest of the pressure increment is taking place into the diffuser section. If we look at the velocities, velocity is increasing significantly into the impeller, where kinetic energy is increasing imparted due to the rotation of the impeller. Then it is decreasing significantly into diffuser, where high pressure rise take place. Second diagram, which is showing the flow entering into the diffuser section, which will be something like that, where there is no blades, so flow will be coming through these rows of blades and enters the diffuser section, where its velocity is decreasing and pressure is rising. So if we look at the impeller, we can have two kind of impellers. One is called single sided entry, another is called double sided entry. In single sided entry, flow will enter only from one side of the impeller, while in double sided entry, double sided impeller, flow will get divided and it enters from both sides of the impeller. Advantage of double sided impeller is that blades of impeller will be subjected to lesser load compared to the single sided impeller. So if we look at the velocity triangles, particularly how actually they behave. So as I said, there are three kind of blades. This is the first diagram, which is representing the radial vents or radial types of blades. And rotation of the shaft is anti-clockwise in this diagram. And the second one is backward curved blade, where blades are curved backward, right, against the flow direction. And this is the forward curved blades, where blade angle is greater than 90, and in backward curved blade angle is less than 90, and radial curved blade angle is 90 degree, exactly 90 degree. So if we look at the outlet velocity triangle, these are the outlet velocity triangles. So if we look at the outlet velocity triangle in the case of radial vents, flow will leave the radial blades with respect to the blade. So with respect to blade, velocity is known as relative velocity. So it will leave with W, which will be parallel to the surface of the blade, and this is the blade velocity U2, and this component shows the absolute velocity at outlet. So in this case, blade angle beta 2 is 90 degree. That's why it is the perpendicular component vector for W, that is relative velocity with respect to blade velocity. The second diagram is backward curved blade, where this is the relative velocity component, and this is the blade velocity. If you draw a tangent over this tip here, right, that will be looking like horizontal line, which will be representing the absolute velocity of impeller blade velocity, and this is V2 is the absolute velocity of the flow. And this is the velocity triangle for the forward curve blade, right. In this case, your outlet velocity triangle is slightly tilted towards the flow direction. So this is the relative velocity component, and here is the absolute velocity component, and connecting these 2 points gives us absolute velocity. So if we compare the triangles in three different cases, the forward curve blades, we are getting the highest kinetic energy at the end. So V2 component is bigger, right, compared to the backward curve blades, as well as in comparison to radial curved blades. So this is the comparative graph, which is showing the pressure rise with respect to the mass flow rate for three different kind of blades. Here is the forward curve blade, where a higher static pressure rise is taking place. This is the radial blades, where pressure rise is almost the same between two impeller and diffuser section. And this is the backward curve blade, where pressure rise is decreasing with the mass flow rate. So while pressure is increasing, mass flow rate is decreasing in the case of backward curve blades. So if we compare these three, forward curve blades are more efficient, but problem with this kind of blade is that highest bending stresses will be generated and are not desirable for the highest pressure rise. So usually we prefer the radial curve blades, which will give intermediate performance between backward and forward curve blades. So if we look at the advantage and disadvantage of various kind of impeller, if we look at the radial vents, They are reasonable compromise between low energy transfer and high absolute outlet velocity. Their design is very simple, right? And bending stresses are negligibly small in the case of radial vents. But disadvantage is that surge margin is relatively narrow. They may surge relatively faster than other kind of blades. Backward curve blade, low outlet kinetic energy and surge margin, but they can operate over wide range. So efficiency is low compared to the radial bands. If you look at the forward curve blade, here highest possible energy transfer will be there, so we can generate high kinetic energy. But problem with this kind of configuration is they are having very high bending stress, right? That we say complex bending stress. Similarly, surge margin is less compared to the radial bends, right? And manufacturing is slightly difficult. So if we look at the Euler's energy equation, the assumption of Euler's energy equation says that the flow should leave the impeller with a tangential velocity equal to the blade velocity. If we want to get the maximum pressure rise, then this condition should be satisfied. There should be no loss due to the fluid friction. There should be no energy loss or gain due to the heat transfer to or from the compressor. So if we apply all these assumptions, we can write the Euler's energy equation for the compressor in such a way that uh, in our discussion in the manual classes, I have represented the Euler's energy equation by capital E suffix C is equal to U1. This is CT1. B theta 1 is nothing but tangential velocity component CT1 minus U2 CT2. So this is the Euler's energy equation for the compressor. So for ideal condition, when flow is leaving with tangential velocity, that is means CT2 is also can say U2, and there is no tangential component of velocity at entry. So we can say Euler's energy equation will be U2 square in the case of ideal energy transfer. So then if we look at the inlet guide vane contribution velocity triangle, so if there is no inlet guide vane, in that case flow will enter into the compressor with a velocity equal to the absolute velocity. It will not have any tangential component velocity at the entry. So velocity triangle will look like this. Flow enters with velocity equal to absolute velocity, which is also known as axial velocity or radial velocity, and this is a radial velocity component, relative velocity component with respect to the blade profile at the entry W1, and this is the impeller velocity U1. If we are using the inlet guide vane will increase the swell at the entry. That means it will generate as tangential component of velocity at the entry. So we are having two kind of free will. One is positive free will, another is negative free will. Positive free will blades will be arranged in this way in the nozzle, and this is the impeller blade, this is the nozzle blade. The flow velocity by which flow is entering to the inducer vane will be coming like relative velocity omega 1. This is the absolute velocity, so we are getting a tangential component of velocity here at the entry. So the moment we are getting the tangential velocity component at the entry, it will reduce the overall energy transfer in the compressor. So in positive free will, CT1 is positive, but in the case of negative free will, here we are getting the CT1 which is negative. Negative means opposite to the flow direction. The flow direction is here. So opposite flow direction is negative free will. In this way, if we are arranging the blades, it will be negative free will. So this is regarding the your velocity triangles. So if we return back again to the compressor characteristics, so compressors are designed to get the high pressure rise with low work input because it is a work consuming device. So what are the different parameters which are going to affect the performance of a compressor? Will be the pressure ratio, the RPM of the impeller, that is also very important parameter that will also affect, and size of the impeller, that is diameter of the impeller, and the length of the shaft, that will also affect over the performance of the compressor. So those performance of compressor can be evaluated with the help of certain kind of charts or curves. Those are known as compressor characteristics curve. So the performance of a compressor may be specified by curves of delivery pressure and temperature against mass flow rate. So we draw the parameters with y-axis as delivery pressure or temperature, and with the x-axis as mass flow rate, will get certain variation. Those variation curves are known as characteristic curves. These characteristic curves, however, are dependent on other variables such as conditions of pressure and temperature at entry of the compressor and the physical properties of the working medium. So if we want to see the overall behavior of all these properties, we'll have to do the excessive number of experiments, and for every data we'll have to generate a different kind of curves. We'll have an infinite number of characteristic curves. To avoid that kind of practice, usually we prefer the non-dimensionalization of these terms, and if we plot non-dimensional parameters of pressure, static pressure, with non-dimensional parameter of mass flow rate, which will give us the characteristic curves which are applicable to all kind of working conditions. So these are the parameters, dimensional, non-dimensional parameters. This is P02 by P01 is non-dimensional pressure parameter, and T02 by T01 is non-dimensional temperature parameter, and this parameter gives the mass flow rate, non-dimensional mass flow parameter, and this is the speed, non-dimensional speed parameter. So if you look at the capital D is the diameter of the impeller. Here, as impeller size is not going to vary, so those are the fixed dimension, and specific gas constant capital R is a specific gas constant that is also not going to vary for a particular fluid. So this R and D can be omitted from the non-dimensional terms. We are omitting those, we will get very simple non-dimensional terms which are here. P02 by P01 is static head non-dimensional parameter, and T02 by T01 is the temperature head parameter. There is a mass flow rate parameter, there is the speed parameter. So if these are the variables affecting the performance, it is only necessary to plot two sets of curves in order to describe overall performance of a fixed speed compressor. So these are the two curves which can be drawn, P02 by P01 AB plot versus mass flow rate, non-dimensional mass flow rate, that is m dot root T01 divided by P01 for fixed value of speed, or temperature ratio T02 by T01 versus mass flow rate, non-dimensional mass flow rate for a fixed speed. So based on these two curves, easily we can find out the overall effectiveness of the compressor in terms of polytropic or isentropic efficiencies. So this is given here. Efficiency isentropic is given as pressure ratio P02 by P01 to the power gamma minus 1 upon gamma minus 1 divided by T02 by T01 minus 1. So this is known as the isentropic efficiency for a fixed speed compressor. So if we look at the compressor characteristics in the combined form, which will be looking like this. So over this curve, this is the compressor performance curves at different speed, at different non-dimensional speed. So this is 100% speed, that is represented as 1, 90% of the speed, 80%, 70%, and 60% of the designed value of speed. These curves have been drawn. These are all experimental data. So it starts from very low pressure, then pressure build up, a point will reach where you will have a maximum pressure, and beyond that, the flow choking will occur, due to which there will be loss of pressure. So this dotted line at the end is known as surge line. Beyond that, operation is not recommended. Compressor operation is not recommended. So this is the maximum possible pressure rise, which will occur only in ideal condition, and actually it will not be happening. So most of the curve between low side up to maximum side, here somewhere we will get the pressure rise in the actual compressor. This is the isentropic efficiency variation with the mass flow rate, which looks like this. So if we look at the theoretical compressor characteristics, the theoretical is not experimental data. Theoretically, if we look at starting, there will be some pressure, static pressure in the impeller. With increase in mass flow rate, pressure rise increases, reaches at maximum point at capital B, which is the maximum possible pressure rise. And beyond that, there will be choking will occur, due to which there will be loss of pressure. And point C is not possible in reality because there will be no zero pressure ratio in the compressor. So theoretically, we look at the when valve is shut, mass flow rate is zero. In that case, P02 by P01 static pressure, some air will be trapped inside, and so because of that, some static pressure ratio will be there, which is represented by the capital A here. Point B that correspond to the maximum possible pressure rise or maximum possible isentropic efficiency point, that is point B. And point C, all power is absorbed in overcoming internal friction. This is a hypothetical case, which does not exist in reality. So in actual case, point A could not be obtained if desired, but most of the curve between A and B could not, because this curve will not be exactly like this. Some fluctuations will be there because of the surging phenomena. That D point, at this D point or below this D point, somewhere surging may occur. Because of that, there will be sudden loss of pressure, and compression may feel intermediate kind of operation. So pressure rise will take place in pulses. So overall efficiency will decrease. So surging, what is a surging? Surging is associated with a sudden drop in delivery pressure and with the violent aerodynamic pulsation, which are transmitted throughout the whole machine. So in this curve, if we look at this point, this is the positive pressure rise point. So any drop in delivery pressure, let's suppose inlet pressure is decreasing. In this case, if downstream pressure is not decreasing appropriately with respect to inlet pressure, there will be backflow in the machine. Due to the backflow, machine will experience some sort of vibrations or pulsations. A point will reach when downstream pressure drop sufficiently with respect to the inlet flow condition. Then again compressor will pick up, then again pressure rise will take place, then again surging will happen. So it will be a pulsation phenomena, right? Continuously it will pick up, then again it will surge. So unstable T will happen in the curve. So that's why we have earlier pointed out that most of the curve between here, this section will not be like this kind of curve. There will be a lot of fluctuations because of the surging phenomena. So when surging occurs, there will be a sudden drop in delivery pressure, that is non-dimensional P02 by P01 will drop rapidly. Downstream pressure will also fall. Then again a condition will reach when downstream pressure drop is equal to the upstream pressure drop. Then again compressor will pick up, then again surge will happen. Next characteristics is the stall. So stalling will occur when blades are operating at a high speed and limited angle of incidence. So there is a blade rows. So all blades will not stall at a single time. One row of blade will stall first, then a point will reach. Other blades will attain the appropriate angle at which flow will get attached. Then again compressor will build up. Then again second blade will stall. Like that stalling will happen throughout the machine. So stalling is the reduction in the mass flow rate of air through the blade passes at higher angle of incidence, which is known as rotating stall. So experimental data or investigation have shown that it is a periodic phenomenon. So all blades do not stall at the same time, but they will stall one by one. One blade will stall, then second will have certain flow to sustain the pressure rise, then again second will stall, like that will propagate. through the entire machine. So next one is chalking. So chalking on theoretical curve, the point C that we have seen, that cannot be reached in actual practice because of the chalked flow. So chalking is nothing but beyond that any further increase in mass flow rate is not possible. So there will be no increase of pressure. If we are doing so, there will be unnecessarily loadings on the impeller blades. So overall efficiency will get decreased. So if we draw the isentropic efficiency variation with respect to the mass flow rate, it will be looking like this. So isentropic efficiency at 60% of the designed speed will be looking like this. It will increase then maximum efficiency, and beyond that, because of the mechanical losses, efficiency will decrease. So it is a decreasing trend is showing here. These are all theoretical curves drawn. In some cases, instead of using the non-dimensional mass flow rate in terms of temperature, we will use in terms of angular velocity and rho theta by delta, and equivalent speed will be root n divided by theta are employed instead of using simple temperatures, where theta is the temperature, T01 is the static temperature rise with respect to reference temperature. Reference temperature means atmospheric temperature, and delta represents the pressure ratio rise. P01 is the pressure rise at the entry of the impeller with respect to the pressure, atmospheric pressure. Where reference temperature and pressure are a standard international standard atmospheric pressure and temperature 288 and 1.013 var. So with that, compressor characteristics is over. So today I am closing the discussion here. So if you are having any query in this, you may ask. Welcome your questions, and for the time being, this is the numerical problem which you can try. I will share already I shared this PPT. You try this one. If you get any doubt, I will help you in that case. So this is the centrifugal compressor which is fitted to aircraft, has following data: mass flow rate is given, rotational speed is given, total pressure ratio is given, slip factor is given, power input is factor is also given, isentropic efficiency 0.82, inner radius, that is the entry radius, is 8 centimeter, outer radius is given 16 centimeter, ambient conditions are standard, forward speed of aircraft is also given, inlet pre-wheel 30 degree, at exit impeller blades are radial blade 90 degree. Find the Mach number at the impeller inlet. Mach number at impeller inlet, there is no pre-wheel, then diameter of the impeller. So this is the question that you have to solve. So here, if you observe the data, here two terms came. One is slip factor, another is called power input factor. Slip factor is coming because of the use of inlet guide vane. So inlet guide vane will give some tangential component velocity of entry, which will reduce the overall energy transfer in the machine. So slip factor is the ratio of tangential component of velocity at impeller outlet to the impeller velocity U. So CT2 divided by U2 is known as slip factor. So it is have a very narrow range. It varies between 0.75 to 0.9. In ideal condition, there will be no slip. So slip factor will be 1. Another factor is power input factor. Power input factor account for flow losses occurred in the machine. It is also having a very narrow range between 1.035 to 1.04. Any value can be assumed. Next parameter is isentropic efficiency, which will account for the loss due to the static temperature difference in the flow. So isentropic efficiency is defined as ideal temperature rise divided by actual temperature rise. As we have seen the impeller I is having variable geometry starting from the tip to root to the tip. So at the root it will have different radius, and tip it will have different radius. That's why two radius are given here. This is the entry, this is the exit. So find out the Mach number. When we are finding out the Mach number is the ratio of the local flow velocity to the speed of sound. So speed of sound depends on the atmospheric conditions. When you are calculating the speed of sound, you need to consider the reference temperature as one of the parameters to find out the speed of sound, and flow with which the fluid is entering, or velocity with which the flow is entering, is nothing but relative velocity. So we need to consider the relative velocity component here as the local flow velocity, and divided by the speed of sound will give the Mach number at the impeller inlet. Similarly, you can find out the impeller outlet. So Mach number can be find out. Diameter of the impeller can be find out from the impeller velocity, that is u. So if you know the u, you can find out the diameter of the impeller. That can be calculated. So this problem can be tried with now I welcome your questions. If you're having any query, please you can ask or you can put in chat. I welcome your queries. Thank you. Hello. Okay, friends. If you are not having any doubt, you can leave. In next class, when we'll meet, we will discuss about the axial flow compression. Thank you for listening.